Nobody showed up to my graduation, not one familiar face in the crowd. My name echoed through the speakers, but the reserved for family row stayed empty, sunlight bouncing off cold metal seats. I smiled for the photo anyway, pretending it didn't sting. 3 days later, my mom's text appeared. Need $2,100 for your sister's sweet 16. No congrats, just a demand. So I sent $1. Then I changed the locks. What I didn't know was that she'd already stolen my identity. And when her plan unraveled at my sister's party in front of 200 guests, the police didn't come for me. They came for her. I'm Maya Santos, 26 years old, a software engineer who spent more time debugging code than being seen by my own family. People say I look younger than I am, dark hair I keep in a messy bun, glasses that slide down my nose when I'm focused, and a face that still looks hopeful even after years of disappointment. But none of that ever mattered to my family. To them, I was the ATM with a heartbeat, the daughter who fixed things, not the one who deserved celebration. The day of my graduation was supposed to be different. The stadium shimmered in May sunlight, a blur of navy gowns and proud families waving phones in the air. When my name echoed, Maya Santos, Master of Computer Science, I looked up instinctively, searching the front rows where I'd reserved 4 seats. Reserved for family, the little card read. The section glared back at me, empty and metallic under the light. Not even a shadow where my parents should have been. Not a purse left on a chair, not a jacket draped over a seat. Just 4 empty spaces that might as well have been tombstones. I forced a smile for the photo, holding my diploma so tight the edges bent. My cheeks ached from pretending. Around me, laughter bloomed like confetti. Students kissed their parents. Friends cried into bouquets. A girl next to me squealed as her grandmother rushed the stage with flowers. I stood alone, my smile shrinking with each camera click. Afterward, I lingered in the courtyard, scrolling my phone just to look busy. The screen was blank, no missed calls, no texts, nothing. Jessica, my classmate, found me and grabbed my arm. "You did it! We actually survived grad school." Her parents materialized behind her, beaming, already taking photos. She turned, scanning the crowd. "Where's your family? Stuck in traffic?" "Yeah," I lied. "Portland traffic, you know." The lie came easy. Years of practice had perfected it. By the time I reached the parking lot, the sky was turning gold. Balloons floated above car roofs. Kids shouting, horns honking, families loading into minivans with "Congrats Graduate" signs taped to windows. I sat in my beat-up Honda, the seats still warm from the afternoon sun, and watched it all from behind the wheel. For a second, I let myself imagine them. Mom waving, Sophie in her glitter sneakers bouncing with excitement, Dad holding a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite. Then a horn blared behind me, and the vision shattered like glass under a hammer. The truth is, I shouldn't have been surprised. My parents had skipped my college graduation too. 4 years earlier, same empty seats, same hollow feeling in my chest. Back then, Mom said Sophie had a dance recital. "You understand, honey, it's her first solo. You're so independent. You don't need us there." Dad didn't even call. It was always some reason, always a smaller, shinier priority, wrapped in the excuse that I was strong enough to handle disappointment, as if strength meant I didn't deserve to feel wanted. I'd spent my teenage years trying to earn love like it was a scholarship you had to qualify for every semester. Working 2 jobs, sending money home, saying yes to every request, every demand disguised as a family obligation. When I was 17, I wore a green Starbucks apron at 5 a.m., serving caramel macchiatos to lawyers and nurses who were kind enough to learn my name. My hands smelled like espresso and burned milk for years. Mom used to text while I was mid-shift. "Thanks, honey. Sophie needs new dance shoes. The ones with the ribbons. $200. Or, she has a competition in Seattle. Can you cover the hotel? Just this once." Okay. I always said okay. The first time she called me our rock, I believed her. I thought love sounded like appreciation, like being needed. Now I know it sounded like obligation, like being used. When I got into grad school, I told myself this degree would change everything. That if I just achieved enough, climbed high enough, Maybe she'd finally see me. Not as the backup plan, not as the walking wallet, but as her daughter. Someone worth celebrating. I didn't know then that even success could be twisted into another reason to take from me. 3 days after the ceremony, when the cap and gown still hung on the back of my bedroom door, that message appeared on my phone. I was sitting on my couch, eating leftover Thai food straight from the container, when it buzzed. Need $2,100 for Sophie's Sweet 16. Party's in 2 weeks. Can you Venmo by Friday? No. Congratulations, Maya. No. We're sorry we missed your graduation. No. How are you doing? Just numbers, a deadline, and that same quiet expectation that I'd comply like I always did. I stared at the text for so long. The phone dimmed and locked itself. $2,100. The exact number sat there like a command, not a request. I should have been numb by now. For years, money had been the language my family used instead of love. Dollar signs instead of "I'm proud of you." Venmo requests instead of phone calls, asking how I was doing. But that day, something shifted. Maybe it was the quiet after graduation, the echo of all those clapping hands that weren't for me. Maybe it was seeing those 4 empty seats and realizing they'd never be filled. Maybe it was just the simple fact that I'd finally run out of reasons to keep buying affection that never existed. I opened my banking app. My savings account glowed back at me. $4,200. 2 years of saving, of eating ramen, of walking to work instead of taking the bus. Every penny earned from tutoring sessions and freelance coding projects. I felt something in me harden, like water freezing into ice. I typed in $1. Added a note. Congrats on the party. And hit send. For a long minute, I just sat there. The word sent, glowing on the screen like a small act of rebellion. My heart pounded, my hands trembled, but underneath the fear was something else, something that felt dangerously close to freedom. Then I stood up, walked to the drawer by the front door, and pulled out the spare key my mother insisted on keeping for emergencies. I stared at it, brass and cold in my palm. A key that had let her walk into my space, my life, my boundaries whenever she wanted. I dropped it into the trash. The sound it made hitting the bottom of the bin was small but final. That night, I called a locksmith. He arrived an hour later, an older man with kind eyes and a toolbox that clinked like wind chimes when he set it down. Changing locks? He asked. Starting over, I said. The new lock clicked into place, solid and permanent. When he left, I stood in the doorway for a moment, breathing in the faint smell of oil and metal. It was the first boundary I'd ever built in my life, and it felt like building a wall between drowning and breathing. The next day, sunlight filled my small apartment. I brewed coffee, watched the steam curl toward the ceiling, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch at the silence. It was mine. No one could walk in. No one could demand anything. Peace had a sound. It was this. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic outside, the click of my coffee mug against the table until the knocking started. Firm, rhythmic, persistent. 3 heavy knocks that rattled the frame. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips. It wasn't Mrs. Chen, my landlord. She always called first. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. 2 uniforms filled the hallway, blue and black, badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Portland Police, one said, calm and professional. Miss Santos? My heart slammed against my ribs. I opened the door, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes? The taller officer, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression, showed her badge. We received a call from your mother, Linda Santos. She reported that you've been acting erratically, changing locks without notice, refusing to answer calls, and that she's worried you might harm yourself. The words hit me like cold water. She did what? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd it circled back to tragic. My mother had called the police, on me, for changing my own locks. The officer's eyes softened slightly. We just need to confirm you're okay. Standard welfare check. Mind if we step in? I nodded, stepping aside. They entered slowly, taking in the apartment with practiced eyes. It was spotless. Coffee mug on the table, laptop open with lines of code on the screen. My framed diploma on the wall, still smelling faintly of new glass. A half-eaten bagel on a plate. A stack of job applications printed and organized by deadline. I gestured around, my voice quiet but steady. "Do I look unstable to you?" The female officer's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Not even close, ma'am." She asked a few questions. How was I feeling? Any thoughts of self-harm? Was I under unusual stress? I answered honestly, my voice growing steadier with each response. Just finished grad school, working on job applications. No medical issues, no depression, just boundaries. The word hung in the air between us. She nodded slowly, understanding crossing her face. "We'll file the report as no concern. But if your mother calls again with similar claims, you can reference this visit. Case number will be in your email within the hour." They turned to leave, and just before stepping out, she paused. Her voice dropped, quieter, almost conspiratorial. Sometimes when people start standing up for themselves, others panic. Happens more than you'd think. You're doing the right thing. When the door closed, I leaned against it, my whole body shaking. Not from fear, from fury. My mother hadn't just crossed a line. She declared war on my boundaries, weaponizing the police to humiliate me, to force me back into submission. That night, I sat on the couch in the dark, the police report glowing in my inbox. I replayed the years of manipulation like a film reel I couldn't turn off. The way she'd guilt me into sending money. Family helps family, Maya. Don't you care about your sister? The way she'd twist my independence into a weapon against me. You're so strong, you don't need support like Sophie does. It had always been about control, not care. About keeping me useful, not loved. I didn't know what she'd do next. But if she was willing to use the police to humiliate me, there was no limit to what might come after. The silence in my apartment didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like the pause before a storm, the air pressure dropping, the sky turning green, and I was done waiting to get struck. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The city still quiet under a soft haze of fog. My phone lay face down on the table beside the police report. I hadn't heard from my mother since the night she sent officers to my door, but I knew her silence wasn't peace. It was strategy. She was regrouping, planning her next move. I made coffee, the familiar ritual grounding me, and opened my laptop. I intended to lose myself in job applications, in lines of code, in anything that felt productive and normal. Instead, I opened my banking app to transfer money for rent. That's when I saw it. A pit formed in my stomach, cold and heavy. 2 new credit inquiries blinked back at me in red. Capital One and Chase, both dated within the last 2 weeks, both completely unfamiliar. My chest tightened. I hadn't applied for any new cards. I clicked through to my credit report, my hands starting to shake, and there they were. 2 accounts opened in my name. My social security number, my date of birth, my address, but not this address. My parents' house in Beaverton. I froze, the coffee mug forgotten in my hand. The balances were already climbing. Capital One, $3,400. Chase, $2,800. Over $6,000 spent in my name in less than 2 weeks. I clicked on the transaction history, my breath coming faster now. Party Perfect Events, $1,200. Portland DJ Services, $800. Glam Beauty Studio, $650. Paper and Petals Floral, $580. My mother's text came rushing back like a gunshot to the chest. Need $2,100 for Sophie's Sweet 16. It wasn't a request. It was a cover story. She'd already taken the money. She just wanted me to pay for it willingly, so I wouldn't look at my credit report. I called the number on the Capital One statement, my voice shaking but steady. "This is Maya Santos. I need to report identity theft." The woman on the line was professional, her keyboard clicking in the background. She verified my information, asked me security questions, and then paused. The silence stretched too long. "Miss Santos, this account was opened in person at our Beaverton branch on April 28th. The co-applicant listed is Linda M. Santos. Is that your mother?" For a moment, everything went still. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, even my breath caught in my throat. "Yes," I whispered. "That's my mother." "Ma'am," she continued carefully, her voice softer now. "We'll flag this for fraud investigation immediately. You'll receive forms to complete within 24 hours. I'm also noting that the primary applicant used your information without authorization. This will be forwarded to our legal team." When the call ended, I sat staring at the screen. It was all there, documented in black and white. My mother's signature, her phone number, her address. She hadn't just asked me for money, she'd stolen my identity, forged my signature, became me on paper to fund my sister's party, the party I wasn't even invited to. I opened my voice recorder app, my hands surprisingly steady now. In Oregon, one-party consent meant I could legally record phone conversations without the other person's knowledge. I'd researched it during grad school for a project on privacy laws. I never thought I'd use it against my own mother. I dialed her number. She picked up after 3 rings, her tone sharp and defensive. "So you're alive? I thought maybe you'd finally answer after ignoring me for days." "Mom," I said, my voice even and cold. "I found 2 credit cards opened under my name, both using your address, both maxed out for Sophie's party." "Do you want to explain that?" she laughed. It was a hollow, practiced sound, the laugh she used when she was about to gaslight me. "Oh, that. Honey, I was helping you build credit. You're 26 with barely any credit history. I did you a favor, and yes, I used it for Sophie's Sweet 16. But that's what family does. We help each other. You should be grateful I'm thinking about your financial future." "Grateful," I repeated slowly. The word tasted like ash. "You forged my signature. You opened accounts in my name without my permission. That's not helping, Mom. That's identity theft." "Don't be so dramatic," her voice hardened. "It's family money. What's yours is ours. You've always been so selfish, Maya. Sophie deserves this party. She's only 16 once. You got your little graduation. Nobody stopped you from walking across that stage." "Nobody came either," I said quietly. "Because we were busy. God, do you ever stop being the victim? I raised you. I fed you. I put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe me more than this attitude." "No," I said, my voice dropping to barely a whisper. "What's mine is mine, and what you did is a federal crime. The bank already knows. There's an open fraud investigation." The silence on the line was instant and complete, heavy, stunned. Then came the sound of her sharp inhale, the kind she made when she was about to lose control. "You wouldn't dare. You'd destroy your own mother over money?" "You destroyed my credit over a party," I said. "I already filed the report. The bank has your signature, your phone number, your address. You'll be hearing from them soon." "You ungrateful little—" I ended the call. My hand was shaking as I hit the red button, but my chest felt lighter. I saved the recording, my fingers moving automatically, and labeled it Evidence, Linda Santos Identity Theft, May 23, 2025. Outside, morning light spilled across the floor, catching the edges of my diploma on the wall and the new lock on my door. 2 pieces of proof that I'd earned everything on my own, and now, finally, I was protecting it. For the first time, the silence in my apartment felt powerful. It wasn't the pause before a storm anymore. It was the storm itself. And I was finally the one holding the thunder. 2 weeks passed in strange, suspended quiet. I filled out fraud affidavits, froze my credit, and changed every password on every account I'd ever created. The bank's fraud department called 3 times, each conversation peeling back another layer of what my mother had done. She'd practiced my signature, brought a fake ID with my information, told the bank representative that I was her daughter and we do everything together. The lie was so casual, so confident, it had worked. I didn't hear from my mother. No calls, no texts, no police showing up at my door, but I knew what was coming. Sophie's Sweet 16 was tomorrow night, Saturday, May 24th, at the Pearl Event Center downtown. I knew because the charges on my stolen credit cards painted a detailed picture. 7 p.m. DJ until midnight. 200 guests. A custom cake that cost more than my monthly rent. I wasn't invited, of course, but I didn't need an invitation for what was about to happen. That Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Miss Santos, a crisp, professional female voice. This is Jennifer Walsh, fraud investigation specialist with Capital One. I'm calling to inform you that we've escalated your case. Our legal team has coordinated with local law enforcement to verify and document the fraudulent transactions. There's a significant charge being processed tonight at the Pearl Event Center. We'll have representatives on site. My throat tightened. You're sending people to the party? Yes, ma'am. This is standard procedure for identity theft cases involving active fraud. We'll be documenting evidence and confirming the charges with the primary account holder. You're not required to be present, but I wanted you to be aware. Will the police be there? Yes. 2 officers will accompany our fraud investigator. This is a formal investigation now, Miss Santos. Your mother's facing potential criminal charges. I thanked her and hung up, my hands trembling. Through my open window, I could hear the city humming below, people laughing on the sidewalk, a street musician playing guitar, life continuing like normal while my family's world was about to implode. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only the shell. At 7:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Sophie, the first communication from my family in 2 weeks. What did you do? Police just walked in. Everyone's staring. Mom's freaking out. Then another. They're asking about credit cards. They said your name, Maya. What did you do? Then another. You ruined everything. I hate you. I set the phone down and walked to the window. Downtown glowed in the distance, the Pearl District's lights twinkling like fallen stars. Somewhere in that glow, in that beautiful event space, with its chandeliers and Instagram-perfect backdrop, my mother was facing the consequences of treating me like an ATM instead of a daughter. I didn't reply to Sophie. There was nothing to say. Meanwhile, across town, according to the detailed report I'd received 3 days later, 2 uniformed officers entered the Pearl Event Center at 7:42 p.m. No sirens, no drama, just calm authority cutting through the music and laughter. A woman in a business suit followed them, Jennifer Walsh, carrying a leather folder thick with documents. The DJ noticed first. The music stuttered, then stopped. 200 heads turned toward the entrance. Good evening, one officer said, his voice carrying across the sudden silence. We're looking for Linda Santos. We need to speak with her regarding a fraud investigation. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Phone cameras lifted. My mother stood near the dessert table, her hand frozen on the knife she'd been using to cut the custom cake. 3 tiers, covered in edible gold leaf. 16 sparklers waiting to be lit. Her face drained of color. I'm Linda Santos, she said, her voice barely audible. There must be some mistake. Jennifer Walsh stepped forward, opening her folder. Mrs. Santos, I'm with Capital One's fraud investigation unit. We're here regarding 2 credit accounts opened fraudulently in your daughter Maya Santos's name. The accounts were used to fund this event. She gestured around the room, at the flowers, the DJ booth, the custom backdrop that read Sophie's Sweet 16 in cursive gold letters. Gasps. Someone whispered, Wait, isn't that identity theft? Another voice, louder. She stole from her own daughter? My mother's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Sophie stood in the center of the dance floor, her custom dress shimmering under the lights, mascara already starting to run. Mom, her voice cracked. Mom, what are they talking about? The officer's tone remained neutral, procedural. We're not making an arrest tonight, Mrs. Santos, but we need you to come to the station tomorrow morning to provide a statement. We have documentation showing you opened these accounts without your daughter's consent and forged her signature. Jennifer added, her voice quieter but no less firm. The transactions total $6,247, all traced to this event. We'll need copies of all receipts and contracts. The room had gone completely silent. You could hear the hum of the DJ's abandoned equipment, the buzz of the overhead lights. Then the whispers started, soft at first, then building like a wave. Oh my God! Can you believe this? That poor other daughter. I'm texting everyone. Within 5 minutes, Guests started leaving. First a trickle, then a flood. Couples grabbing coats, parents ushering embarrassed teenagers toward the exits. The event coordinator stood helplessly by the door, her tablet clutched to her chest. The cake sat untouched, sparklers unlit. Sophie ran to the bathroom, her friends trailing behind her in a flutter of dresses and heels. My father, who I hadn't seen in the report but who must have been there, stood frozen by the bar, his face gray. My mother tried one last time. "This is a misunderstanding. Maya's confused. She gave me permission." "Ma'am," the officer interrupted gently but firmly. "We have recorded evidence that contradicts that statement. We'll discuss this tomorrow." By 8:30, the Pearl Event Center was empty, except for staff cleaning up half-eaten appetizers and abandoned champagne flutes. The custom backdrop sagged slightly, one corner coming untaped. The DJ packed his equipment in silence, shaking his head. The party that cost over $6,000 of my stolen identity lasted 47 minutes. Back in my apartment, I stood by the window and watched lightning pulse silently above the city, a spring storm rolling in from the coast. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just let the quiet wrap around me like a blanket. The sound of justice wasn't loud. It was this: the soft patter of rain beginning to fall, the distant rumble of thunder, the peace of knowing I'd finally stopped letting them take from me. For years, I thought silence was what weakness sounded like. That night, I realized it was victory. 3 days later, an email arrived from Capital One. Subject: Fraud Investigation Resolution. Dear Ms. Santos, our investigation has concluded. Primary applicant Linda M. Santos has acknowledged unauthorized use of your personal information and has entered a repayment agreement for the full amount of $6,247, plus fees and interest. Your credit report has been corrected. All fraudulent accounts have been closed and removed from your record. No further action is required on your part. One sentence in the middle made me pause. Mrs. Santos has been flagged in our system and will be unable to open accounts with Capital One or any affiliated institutions. No apology, no explanation. Just the truth finally, on paper. Word spread fast. In a city like Portland, where everyone knew someone who knew someone, gossip moved at the speed of text messages. I heard from Jessica that Sophie had deleted all her social media accounts. Someone's cousin had been at the party and posted a video, 30 seconds of chaos, police and disbelief, and my mother's face frozen in shock. It hit 50,000 views before Sophie reported it and got it taken down. My father sent one email. "You didn't have to humiliate us publicly. We could have worked this out as a family." I deleted it without responding. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't compose long explanations in my head or rehearse conversations I'd never have. I was done explaining what should have been obvious, that love isn't supposed to come with a price tag, and family isn't supposed to steal from you. I filled out the final FTC identity theft forms, updated my credit monitoring, and closed the old email address my mother had access to. Then I printed the case closure letter from Capital One and pinned it on my wall, right beside my framed diploma and the receipt from the locksmith. 3 documents side by side: proof of effort, proof of protection, proof of freedom. That night, I brewed chamomile tea and opened the window. Rain-scrubbed air spilled into the apartment, carrying the smell of wet pavement and the fresh starts. The city hummed below, alive and indifferent to my small drama. And for the first time in my life, that felt comforting. The world was so much bigger than my family's dysfunction. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. 6 months later, autumn settled over Portland. The city dressed in gold and amber, the air crisp enough to make you believe in new beginnings. I'd started a new job at a tech startup in the Pearl District, ironically just 3 blocks from where Sophie's party had imploded. My co-workers were kind, brilliant, the kind of people who asked about my weekend because they actually cared about the answer. My apartment had changed too. New curtains, soft gray instead of the builder's beige, plants on the windowsill, small succulents that didn't need much care but made the space feel alive. a coffee maker that didn't leak, small things that felt like exhaling after holding your breath for years. On my wall hung 3 things: my diploma, my employee badge with the startup's logo, and the old lock I'd replaced, mounted on a small wooden plaque. Together, they told one story: the story of how I finally chose myself. I heard through distant family that Sophie had gone to community college, quieter now, less interested in Instagram perfection. That my mother had taken a part-time job to pay off the debt, something she'd never had to do before. That my father had started going to therapy, though I didn't know if that was true or just wishful thinking from an aunt who'd reached out. I didn't ask for details. Their lives were no longer my responsibility to fix or fund or worry about. I'd spent 26 years trying to earn a love that was never really on offer, and I was done auditioning for a role I'd never get. One Saturday morning, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost declined, but something made me answer. "Maya?" Sophie's voice, small and uncertain. "It's me." I said nothing, just waited. She paused. "I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for not seeing how they treated you, for believing Mom when she said you were just being difficult, for that text I sent the night of my party." The silence stretched. Outside, a runner passed by, headphones in, completely absorbed in their own world. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Sophie continued. "I just wanted you to know that I see it now, what they did, what I let them do." "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly, and I meant it. But I also knew that acknowledgement wasn't the same as rebuilding. Some bridges burn for a reason. "Maybe we could get coffee sometime," she asked, hope threading through her voice. "Maybe," I said. "Someday, but not yet." When we hung up, I sat by the window and watched the leaves spiral down from the trees. Forgiveness, I realized, doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it's closing it gently and walking away in peace, knowing you don't owe anyone access to the life you built from nothing. The morning light caught the edge of my diploma, making it glow. Next to it, the old lock gleamed like a trophy. I thought about that empty graduation stadium, those 4 metal seats glinting in the sun, and how much I'd changed since that day. I'd stopped waiting for them to see me. I'd started seeing myself. Outside, the city stretched awake. Coffee shops opening, people walking dogs, the smell of rain still lingering from last night's storm. Life continuing in its beautiful, ordinary way. I poured a second cup of coffee and opened my laptop. I had code to write, problems to solve, a life to build that belonged only to me. For the first time in 26 years, that was enough. If you've ever had to change the locks on people who were supposed to protect you, you're not alone. If you've ever had to choose yourself when no one else would, I see you. Share your story below, and let's build something better together.